This is Psychological Ramification of Exercise as Punishment by William Acosta. Exercise as punishment. What is it? Exercise as punishment is using exercise as a form of punishment to correct behavior, more so to correct undesired behavior, undesired results, or a failure to meet an expected criteria. Examples of that could be having an athlete or a student, a physical education student, run a lap when they're late, having the team do push-ups for goofing off. Those are examples of using exercise as punishment. Why is it practiced? Exercise as punishment has been long thought to be beneficial in correcting undesired behavior. The theory behind that is having somebody do something that they don't want to do over and over again until they finally say, I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe I should fix my behavior. Maybe I should stop being late. Maybe I should stop goofing off, or I should pay more attention. Maybe I should get this play right. So that's the theory behind that. Where is it practiced? It's practiced anywhere where there's physical activity or sport, really. Youth sports, high school, collegiate sports, professional sports. The military uses it a lot. Move forward here. Society. Most people have dealt with exercise as punishment firsthand. That is, most people who have had, a PE class have dealt with this. You're late, run a lap. You guys are goofing off, do this, do that. I remember when I was a water polo athlete and a swimmer, I remember doing extra laps or staying, after practice is supposed to be over to do extra work, as a team. And a lot of you guys might remember that as well. For those of you that haven't dealt with it firsthand, more than likely you've seen it depicted in movies, such as Disney's Miracle, and we have a link here. We're going to briefly watch it. It's got a perfect example of using exercise. So right here, this is the 1980 U.S. Olympic hockey team on the road to beating the Soviets, who were essentially the hockey powerhouse back then. So this is a newly organized team. That means that these players haven't played with each other. There's no established cohesion there. And they just played poorly in a game. Now the coach is going to address that. People are still leaving the stands as they're about to be punished. So as you can see, people are still leaving the stands. So obviously he feels like they didn't put forth enough effort during the game, and he's going to punish them for that. So they have to sprint back and forth until essentially they're told to stop.
Gentlemen, you don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. Again,
So this continues for what seems to be hours until eventually one of the players shouts off his name and where he's from. And a little backstory to that is when they first organized this Olympic team, every player had to introduce themselves by saying their name, where they're from, and what team they're coming from. Well, in this case, this is hours after they've been getting smoked. The player says his name, where he's from. The coach responds to that by asking him who he plays for. So the player says Team USA, at which point the practice, or quote-unquote punishment, is ceased and they're allowed to go home. Sort of depicting exercise as punishment as a positive attribute of coaching, which is, false. For example, the National Association for Sport and Physical Education states that administering exercise as punishment is an inappropriate practice because it may drive youths away from physical activity. That is, it correlates, and this is in regards to high school sports, it correlates a negative attribute, negative aspect to physical activity. I don't want to do this anymore, this is not fun, and therefore possibly driving the high school athlete or high school youth away from physical activity for, perhaps permanently. As far as, in older adults, you can injure an athlete by using exercise as punishment. And, they can even quit right then and there, ending their career. They don't want to do it anymore. So there's really no, the movie depicts it as a positive attribute to coaching, but there is no positive attribute to using exercise as punishment. In the following slide, we're going to do comparison between the military and high school athletics, kind of an extreme comparison. But so the military uses exercise as punishment, sort of as a positive attribute to, for example, here, teamwork. Essentially, there's a purpose for using exercise as punishment in the military, but we have to remember that the military has a different mission. Their mission is to fight and win. Whereas the high school athlete or PE student, that's not his mission. His mission is just to grow up healthy and happy. Anyway, so for example here, there's a log, it says teamwork. You could see guys that are struggling, right? There is one person that is not struggling, and it's this guy right here. Essentially, the load that he is not carrying is being carried by the rest of the team, hurting the rest of the team. So in the military, you're as strong as your weakest link. So if I was, for example, the instructor here, that's obvious that this guy's not putting forth any effort. So one tactic I could use is pulling him aside and having him take a water break and rest while the rest of the team gets punished and gets smoked. Eventually this guy is either going to quit the team or be forced to quit by his teammates because he's not putting forth any effort. Or he's going to fix that behavior and he's going to be part of the team and he's going to put forth the effort. So you don't want a weak link on the battlefield. So this is an example of how the military uses exercise as punishment. They also use it to strengthen their soldiers or their sailors or their airmen. If you've got essentially guys that are physically weak, you keep having them do push-ups, for example, eventually they will be stronger. High school athletics and physical education, there's no positive attribute to using exercise as punishment. There's a negative effect on their developing psyche. They're still developing, their brain is still developing, they're still finding that self-esteem, that confidence. Using exercise as punishment can affect that negatively. There can also be a negative correlation between exercise as punishment and physical activity in the future. So they may be driven away from it. They don't want to do it anymore. It's negative to them. There is no positive attribute in the long run as far as high school athletics, and that'll be discussed in this next slide. As stated before, there could be a negative correlation in regards to physical activity. In today's day and age, where obesity is such a big factor in society, we don't want our future generations to continue that path. By using exercise as punishment, we put them at risk for obesity and associated comorbidities. That means hypertension, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol. All those things down the road will essentially lead to an early death and an unhappy and unhealthy lifestyle. Using exercise as punishment can also cause psychological injury. You might damage that athlete or that student's self-esteem, maybe even permanently, and physical injury. So you may, by having the athlete overwork, they could be physically injured. They can have an electrolyte imbalance. They can have a heat illness, and now they're at risk for heat illness for the rest of their lives. The list kind of goes on and on with that. Current practice. In 2013, just briefly touch on this article. 2013, Indiana track coaches were put on leave and essentially asked to resign after punishing the track team for not showing up, essentially. Most of the track team did not show up. This was during prom, and apparently they had other things to do. The coaches got mad, so they had the athletes do backwards bear crawls. And if you could see around the track, you could see some of the injuries that they got. And one of the students said, physically her injuries hurt days after the incident, but the worst part was the memory of the incident. So you could see some psychological injury there. Interestingly enough, a lot of the athletes on the team they felt that the coach's punishment was a bit too harsh. They felt that they were a good part of the team, and they shouldn't be punished like that. Some even came up with ideas on better ways to punish the team, like running laps instead. I thought that was a little interesting. Like I said, most youths were aligned with the coaching staff. Most of them felt like it was okay to be punished. Interesting. Solutions to this. Stepping away from punishment in general in regards to sports and physical education. Focusing on skill work, that is, instead of punishing an athlete for not catching the ball correctly, having them do it over and over and over again. How about, you break it down, you figure out where the problem is, and maybe you kind of sit down and talk with them, or kind of help them understand where the fault is instead of just punishing them for it. Not reprimanding athletes in front of the team. This can embarrass them, making them not want to show up to practice or be part of the team anymore. If somebody's not putting forth any effort, they don't get any game time. First, you got to make sure that there's no underlying issue going on there. But if somebody's goofing off too much, hey, you know what? You're not going to play the next game, or you're not going to play as much as you usually do. And educating the educators and coaches on the ramifications of using exercise as punishment. There's no positive attribute to it. These steps can fix the problem or the future problem that using exercise as punishment causes. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to this presentation.